broken future, shattered dreams, end of times ain't what it seems.
Hello, friends. This is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today, March 5th, 2026. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. We have quite a bit to go over. Day 6 of Iran war. And a whole lot more. What do we got here? Looks like the United States stole Venezuelan gold. Well, they did. They offered them pieces of paper for their gold with a gun to their head. We have that to cover. The ongoing Operation Epstein Fury. We're going to cover that. We've got a little bit of economic news. How's the price of oil looking? The Dow, precious metals, all of that. To round up, what's the price of gasoline looking like? All of that. Other economic news. We have a little public health news. We have Ice Barbie was fired, reassigned essentially, fired from heading up the Department of Homeland Security and reassigned, and we'll get to that at the end here. A major speech happened today. What the heck's even the name? What do they even call it? Very, very generic, but we're going to play at the end here. Secretary of War Hegseth, Stephen Miller, all your favorite Nazis, made a lot of very, very concerning announcements today. We'll cover that at the very end of the show, about a half hour from their presentation here, essentially announcing the American Technate, the North American Union. We'll get to the exact language. We're still looking for transcripts, for any kind of documentation. It's insane. So at the end of the show, about 30 minutes of insanity from these Nazi fascists at the White House. I guess we just call them technocrats at this point. It's pretty insane what all is going on here. We'll cover that at the end of the show. Again, about a 30-minute cut out of this presentation they gave today at the Department of War, or from the Department of War. Where was it at? It was in Florida. It was in Florida. Where the heck is it now? We got a lot open here. Yeah, it was in Florida. It was out South Calm, actually. So there you go. Pretty insane. Pretty insane here now. I'm going to cover that for you. And more Epstein news. I'm going to cover Epstein every day. So we'll keep covering Epstein, the latest there. And a whole lot more. Geopolitical news. And a whole lot more. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. Yesterday's show on the YouTube broke through somehow. We almost got 1,000 views, like 900 something. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in on YouTube and all the other platforms as well, but especially YouTube, because we've finally broken through after a lot of work, getting some more views over there. I don't know what happened. We hate Trump, YouTube. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Anyhow, thank you for tuning in on YouTube and all the other platforms until we're banned again for being correct. Okay, let's get to this day in history. A lot of news today. On this day in history of March 5th, we go back to the year 1743. We saw the first U.S. religious journal, the Christian History, is published in Boston. And now we have religious fanatical maniacs giving orders to our military. Come a long way, haven't we, here, America? In 1770, on this day, we saw the Boston Massacre. British soldiers kill 5 men in a crowd throwing snowballs, stones, and sticks at them. Didn't we have the same? They're throwing snowballs at cops in New York, something like that. Interesting how history may not repeat, but it definitely does rhyme. Back to the Boston Massacre. 1770, British soldiers kill 5 men in a crowd throwing snowballs, stones, and sticks at them. African American Crispus Attucks is the first to die and is later held up as an early black martyr. The Boston Massacre or incident on King Street galvanizes anti-British feelings. Was that a false flag? Was that a setup to kill the black man? Could ask these questions. Question all of this. 1774, on this day, 4 years later after the Boston Massacre, still gaining political capital out of it, John Hancock delivers the 4th annual Boston Massacre Day oration, a commemoration of the Boston Massacre, and denounces the presence of British troops in Boston, enhancing John Hancock's stature as a leading patriot. In 1783, on this day, we saw King Stanislaus Augustus Poniatowski. I know I blew his last name pronunciation. Grant rights to aardvarks of Kovno. Totally blowing it right there, right? Thanks a lot, King Stanislaus Augustus. 1795, on this day, we saw the Treaty of Basel signed. Persia ends war with France. 1795 on this day. 1842 on this day, we saw over 500 Mexican troops led by Rafael Vasquez invade Texas, briefly occupy San Antonio, then head back to the Rio Grande. In 1842, that was 1842. In 1904, on this day, we saw Nikolai Tesla describes the process of the ball lightning formation in electrical world and engineering. In 1927, on this day, we saw 1,000 U.S. Marines land in China to, quote, protect American property in China. 1933, on this day, I'm sure Ruckus will appreciate this. 1933, on this day, FDR proclaims 10-day bank holiday in the United States in an attempt to stem bank failures and restore confidence. Also in 1933, on this day, Germany's Nazi Party wins majority in parliament with 43.9% of the vote, 17.2 million votes. 1945, on this day, Allies bomb The Hague in Netherlands. 1959, on this day, Iran and U.S. signed economic and military treaty. That didn't last long, did it? 1960, on this day, Elvis Presley ends 2-year tour of service in the U.S. Army. And 1992, on this day, Ethic Committee votes to reveal congressmen who bounce checks. And the reason I even bring that up is because, yesterday we reported on it. Congress has voted against exposing the sex abuse congressional slush fund in Congress to show you how far the corruption has come, or how fake it really all is. Worrying about bounce checks in Congress in 1992. Now we can't get the release of the information about who in Congress is paying off victims of their sexual misconduct, is where we're at here now, as Operation Epstein Fury rages. And then we had one on this day in our civil liberties history. In the year 2014, the same old song. NSA head claims Snowden leaks harm national security in the wake of revelations about massive national security agency spying on Americans in documents stolen and leaked by Edward Snowden. The head of the NSA on this day claimed that the leaks were harming national security. This was a familiar refrain from intelligence agency officials and presidential administrations who regularly claim that major leaks harm national security, except, of course, when they leak information for their own purposes. In most cases, and especially with the Snowden-related stories, the information has mainly embarrassed the administration. A year after the initial Snowden-related leaks, there were still no reports of any specific damage to national security resulting from them. 3 months later, on June 27, 2014, however, the new head of the NSA admitted that the sky is not falling because of the Snowden-related leaks. We just know now, backward and documented, the NSA is spying on everybody, 100%, for our own safety and national security, of course. And then this one was making the rounds yesterday on the social medias. I cut it because, I don't know, I'm jaded and cynical at this point. And here it is. And we have a little bit more segue, but this guy's, what is he, a green out of Australia?
Nobody believes that Donald Trump is engaged in this war on the side of the Iranian people for democracy and human rights. Donald Trump isn't on the side of democracy and human rights in the United States, let alone in Iran.
Heard. We have the whole thing here. This guy's under the assumption that we're still under the rules-based international order. We're not. So here's the full clip from David Shoebridge, a green out of Australia. And so here's the full clip.
Nobody believes that Donald Trump is engaged in this war on the side of the Iranian people for democracy and human rights. Donald Trump isn't on the side of democracy and human rights in the United States, let alone in Iran. We saw Penny Wong today refuse to pass judgment on whether or not this wide-scale attack from both the United States and Israel was consistent with international law. That is a comprehensive failure from our own government. Anybody can see, who has the slightest understanding of international law, that this is an illegal attack by Israel and the United States. And international law doesn't enforce itself. International law needs players like Australia to back it in and to call it out when major regimes like the Trump regime repeatedly breach it. I know that there are people in the Iranian diaspora around the world desperate to see this regime changed in Iran. Desperate to see people in Iran safe and their human safety protected. But we know from history that US bombing, backed in by Australia and other sycophantic allies of the United States, do not produce human safety. They produce chaos, they produce violence, and they produce Western dominance, which is the intent behind this latest US attack.
Problem is, America hasn't ever honored international law, and we're definitely not honoring international law right now. As Trump calling today for internationally wanted war criminal, shadow president of America, Bibi, to be pardoned there in Aardvarkland again, making those calls publicly today. And so old Mr. Shoebridge, well, he may be correct. That's not the world we live in, bro. Sorry to tell you if you missed the last couple months here now. It's been thoroughly announced by many world leaders that the old international order, the old new world order, is dead. We're in a new world order. I'm going to tie all that together at the end of this broadcast. You'll see the United States is announcing as much. So Massey, along with Ro Khanna, put forth the Iran War Powers Resolution in the House of Representatives today. It failed, but the votes are on the record. Here is the record. For those that, when your sons and daughters die, you can track it back to maybe this, as this war will become more unpopular as it drags on. I can guarantee you that. But here is the vote today in the House of Representatives. So warmongering neocon Republicans all on board there, almost along party lines. Truly disgusting. When American lives are at risk, Congress is still playing politics and covering up for their rapes. That's where we're at here in this country. Truly, truly disgusting. Marjorie Taylor Greene had this to say. She said, war with Iran is costing American taxpayers $1 billion with a B a day. Most American taxpayers will never receive Social Security check because it will be bankrupt by 2033. You like the 33 columns in there? Most Americans can't afford health insurance policies because they are so expensive. Most American families cannot financially survive on a single income, and both parents have to work like slaves in order to feed their children and keep a roof over their heads. But the Trump administration has decided that these American taxpayers have to spend $1 billion a day to murder people and their children in a foreign country that none of us have ever met and know nothing about. Incredible MAGA priorities indeed there, MTG. And then here's Warren Davison. He's a former Army Ranger, and he's in the Congress. Was he representing here? Let's see. Well, maybe he was just giving the speech. Said former Army Ranger who loves the country with a soldier's passion. Here's a good speech that he's put out there in the Congress.
My name is Warren Davidson, and I love this country with a soldier's passion. More than 30 years ago, I enlisted in the infantry. My chain of command later helped me earn an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point. I was commissioned as an infantry officer serving in the 75th Ranger.
Apparently, he didn't even put in his bio on X that he's a congressman out of Ohio.
Regiment, the 101st Airborne, Rakkasans, and the Old Guard. Then and now, I swore an oath to support and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Make no mistake, Iran is an enemy of the United States, As our military engages them, they do so justly. Unfortunately, they are not yet doing so constitutionally, and that's why we're here today. For some, this debate will be about whether we should even be fighting in Iran. For me, the debate is more fundamental. Is the President of the United States, regardless of the person holding the office, empowered to do whatever he wants? That's not what our Constitution says. Is he empowered to do whatever he wants for 60 or 90 days? That's not what the War Powers Act says. Is there any limit to executive authority whatsoever? I rise in support of this War Powers resolution today because the moral hazard posed by a government no longer constrained by our Constitution is a grave threat. The threat to a government...
Indeed, but somebody needs to inform Warren Davis in there that we're post-constitutional in this country. I can't remember the government ever following the Constitution, actually, now that I think about it. But old Warren Davison doing his best there, former Army Ranger who loves this country with a soldier's passion. Well, and he didn't even put congressman in his bio, so there you go. Here's Ro Khanna.
I have never seen a more dishonest campaign than Donald Trump and J.D. Vance running as the pro-peace candidates. Do you remember this? Yeah. Vice President Harris is going to start World War III.
No new wars. Yeah.
Vice President Harris is going to get us a war in Iran. We are the pro-peace candidates. Like, total lie.
Yeah.
Total lie. They lied about Epstein. They lied
about Epstein. They lied about being against war. Indeed. They lied about everything. They lied about everything. And somehow, some way, do they even have support anymore? Here's their prayer to Satan at the White House. Paula White right there, lunatic who we've highlighted on the show continually. Does anybody believe these people are praying to the God of Jesus of Nazareth? I certainly don't.
We are honored to come before your presence today, lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing today. I pray for your grace and your protection over him. Yes. I pray for your grace and protection over our troops and all of our men and women serving in our armed forces. And Father, we just pray you will continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation as we come back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray your heavenly blessing upon him in Jesus' name.
Surprised they didn't all burst into flames when he said, in Jesus' name. There, I don't think there's praying to the same God, honestly. Okay, public service announcement again here now. If you're American, stuck in the Middle East somewhere, some way, in West Asia, go ahead and call this number. Again, I don't think it's going to help you, but we're doing the public service announcement for Americans that may be stranded there. Here's the website from the State Department. This is from the White House. mytravel.state.gov/s/crisis-intake. Departure assistance information can be found there. State Department contact +1 202 501 4444 for Americans stranded there in the Middle East, West Asia region. If you didn't already know, get out. Get out now. Here's an update from the White House. They say, since February 28th, nearly 20,000 American citizens have safely returned to the United States from the Middle East. These figures do not include the many Americans who have safely relocated to other countries or those who have departed the Middle East but are still in transit back to the United States at the direction of little Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Charter flight and ground transportation operations are underway and will continue to ramp up with additional flights and ground transportation taking place today. The State Department has established a crisis intake form for American citizens in Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Aardvark land. By completing this form, American citizens in those countries will directly receive information about upcoming charter aviation and ground transportation options through the State Department's 24/7 task force. We have assisted over 10,000 Americans abroad, including offering security guidance and travel assistance. The State Department will continue to actively assist any American citizen abroad who wishes to depart the Middle East to do so. Do so. Get the hell out of there, man. Get the hell out of there. NBC News reports Trump administration criticized as thousands of Americans are stranded in war zone. U.S. officials and the president himself have struggled to explain why the government wasn't better prepared for consequences of the Iranian retaliation. And they left Americans hanging there as this global jihad has been declared against America. Here's a cut. I'll just read it to you because we're going to play the whole thing at the end here. But this is a cut from that presentation they gave at Southcom from Secretary of War Hegseth. He says, for too long, leaders in Washington and their foreign policy functionaries abandoned the simple wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine. Now we're on the Donroe Doctrine, right? These elites reduced our power and presence in this hemisphere. The days of us betraying and endangering our own citizens are finished. Propaganda from the White House. Peace through strength. Very Orwellian. Isn't that from Reagan? Remember when they came up with that Orwellian phrase? More from the White House here. They are wasting their time. Khomeini's son is a lightweight. This is Trump talking. I have to be involved in the appointment, like with Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela, Trump said. So now Trump's going to choose the new leader of Iran. That's what he's claiming. Good luck with that. He added that he refuses to accept a new Iranian leader who would continue Khomeini's policies, which he said would force the United States back to war in 5 years. Khomeini's son is unacceptable to me. We want someone that will bring harmony and peace to Iran, Trump said. So Trump's going to pick Iran's new leader, a puppet of America. I don't see how that's going to sort out.
Yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and
I can't even play the propaganda from the White House. They're playing friggin' Metallica Inner Sandman in the background there. Of course, they can violate copyright all day, right? They'll just kill Metallica if they try to claim copyright against them, I guess. Here's some more propaganda out of the White House. They're pumping war propaganda, blowing stuff up all over the place. quite literally insane.
Kablow, kaboom, kablow.
Kill that. Oh, yeah. And again, who even knows if any of this is real? Could all be fake from our own government at this point. Make America great again from the White House. You believe they're putting this shit out? Really? What is that? Like some kind of simulation game? Farmersville or something? I don't know. One of these games. Really? Yeah, you could have a lot of digital assets in virtual reality, but not here so much in the real world. This weekend, Shield of the Americas Summit, the historic meeting reinforcing the Don Roe Doctrine. So more, they're building on this. And that's propaganda, right from Voice of America. Pretty incredible. Today, this is from the White House. Today, President Trump brought the leading AI companies, I believe this was yesterday, actually. I wanted to follow up on it again, where they keep saying that the AI companies are going to pay for the power bills of their data centers to bring about Skynet and technocracy. They've all pledged to protect Americans from electricity price hikes, to take action to further strengthen the electrical grid, and ensure all Americans benefit from the upcoming technological boom. Sure. That was the President Trump advances energy affordability with the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. I guess we have to read the details about it, but something tells me another con job. Okay, on to the economy. Trump announces steps to protect oil tankers as prices surge. We covered that. He's saying we'll ensure all maritime shipping around the world on the back of U.S. taxpayers, of course. U.S. crude oil tops $80 per barrel as escalating Iran war disrupts global fuel supplies. Indeed, Iran claimed to have sunk an oil tanker with a missile, according to its state media. The British Navy reported a large explosion at a tanker at anchor in Iraqi territorial waters. Oil prices have surged about 20% this week. Retail gasoline prices have jumped nearly 27 cents since last week on average. And here is the chart here for crude oil. So we could take a look. It goes straight up, right? Take a look at our chart here. Yeah, it's going all right. It spiked there a little bit back in the summer, in June, in the middle of June. Yeah, it went back down. Yay, Trump saving America. Yay. Oh, no, we're going to go ahead and bomb Iran. And then look at that spike up there. Indeed, quite a jump in the price of oil. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, take a look at, I believe it's been below 50K since old Blondie Bondi. I'm going to cover up Epstein at the DOJ since she made that her outbreak like what, 2 weeks ago. Really not 47,954. You can see right there. Well below 50,000. And then here's the AAA gas prices around the country. Today's AAA national average, $3.25. Not bad. Over in California, $4.80. I think we're the highest in the whole country over here where I'm at. New York. How's New York doing? New York. If we can find it in there. Less than, they're not doing bad actually in New York. Texas, doing all right. Yeah, so getting killed here by the state and the increase in the oil prices in California. We'll keep tracking those prices as we continue. Trump has said he doesn't have any concern on rising gas prices. Well, why should he? He's a billionaire. Why should he care? He doesn't. You and me, Joe Blow, trying to figure out how to put gas in the car to get to work, we have to care, but he doesn't have to care. Oracle, remember Oracle? Larry Ellison, Project Stargate, spinoff of the CIA, essentially. Well, they've announced today they plan to cut thousands of jobs. Thank you very much. NVIDIA stops production of chips intended for the Chinese market, according to a report out of the Financial Times. And this one's pretty bad. 52% of college graduates are currently underemployed. And that's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. 52% of college graduates are currently underemployed. It's the golden age. Public health news, clown world-ish, and Department of Education. So, yeah, here you go. Department of Education, Mega and Maha, make education great again, I guess. And Maha, wrestling lady McMahon and Bobby Kennedy Jr. are teaming up to ensure the next generation of doctors understand nutrition and how it impacts health, because they haven't understood that, according to the Department of Health here, Health and Human Services. And they put out this clown world meme. There, get your action figures today. 2-for-1 Mega Maha Special Edition. UK launches first bird flu miracle trial for poultry to assess effectiveness and whether it could be rolled out to poultry farms. Report out of UK Telegraph. HHS says more than 50 medical schools to require comprehensive nutrition education. So they're launching this campaign with the Department of Education, which we were promised would already be abolished. So another promise broken by Trump there. Kennedy today said, together with the used gov, who the hell is that? Oh, the Department of Education, and McMahon, putting a big elbow on your nutritional education there. Kennedy went on to say, I'm pleased to announce a transformative breakthrough in medical education. Beginning this fall, these schools will require every medical student to complete 40 hours of comprehensive nutritional education. Just drink glyphosate and laugh and say everybody you're crazy and fall over and die from cancer and just laugh about that. That's where we're at here now. Or just keep taking miracles and just laugh about that when you fall over. It's where we're at. Is where we are at here now with public health. Another speaker there went on to say, who was this? This was Bobby McCamala, doctor. He said he was at this presentation for HHS pushing nutritional education to doctors. He says every specialty needs a basic understanding of how nutrition affects health. Pairing stronger nutritional education with this national focus on prevention will make meaningful, even transformational difference in the health of our communities. Well, instead of relying on these assholes, you need to take it into your own hands here now and educate yourself about nutrition and stop listening to the quote experts who have been consistently wrong about quite literally everything. So you need to take personal responsibility and educate yourself. I know that's a conspiracy theory, and we have to always defer our critical thinking to experts who profiteer off of being wrong. But let's rethink that and take personal responsibility and educate ourselves on nutrition and what we shovel in our face before we start injecting Ozempic all day. Just a thought. Just a thought. Yeah, Trump, America, we stole a bunch of Venezuelan gold. Here's that report. Here is that report. Trump officials broker massive U.S. Venezuelan gold deal. Venezuela's state-owned, and this is a report out of Axios, and it was behind a paywall too. Venezuela's state-owned mining company on Monday inked a multi-million-dollar deal to sell as many as 100 kilograms of gold destined for U.S. markets. Two sources familiar with the deal told Axios. The gold deal requires state-owned company Miner Vin to furnish 6,500 to 1,000 kilos of gold door bars to commodities traders Terra Figura, according to one of the sources. The contract calls for 98% final gold content, the source says. Terra Figura will shepherd the gold to U.S. refineries under a separate agreement with the United States government. The U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who arrived in Venezuela yesterday to discuss oil and mineral opportunities, helped shepherd the gold contract. Today, a kilo of pure gold cost about $166,000. The price varies, of course, depending on the market. So yeah, we're going to give them these pieces of paper, right? We're going to give them these pieces of paper with the pyramid and the all-seeing eye on the back too, right? We're going to give them a bunch of these pieces of paper for their gold with literally a gun to their head saying, "Don't you love us? What a great deal. We care about the children." And they have a gun to their head and say, "Take this piece of paper, give us your gold." That's where we're at. Gangster capitalism, straight up. And let me just give you the numbers here quickly, as this is still part of the economy. Today in the U.S., they beat down silver, but it's back up overseas, trading at almost $83, at almost 84. It's like 83.90 something. Gold 5,120, and Bitcoin 71. And we already covered the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the price of oil. So there's a roundup of key markets in the economy today. But hey, You could have this piece of paper or we shoot you in the face. Give us your gold. That's where we're at. That is where we are at. More from America's Counter Cartel Conference. I guess that's the official name of it. They didn't even put that name in the title on the video posted by Southcom, but this is from the White House. And so again, we're going to play like a half hour of that at the end of it, at the end of the show. But here is a quote from the America's Counter Cartel Conference at US Southcom from Stephen Miller. He says the cartels that operate in this hemisphere are the ISIS and the Al Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere and should be treated just as brutally and just as ruthlessly as we treat those organizations. There's not a criminal justice solution to the cartel problem. These organizations can only be defeated with military power. They're complete tyrants. Miller went on to say of the same meeting, the West only achieved the place that it did in human history because it spent previous centuries eradicating the criminal elements within its territories. The West that we came to know, that had the great music and architecture and science and the most powerful economy, had spent centuries previous to that establishing order first. Does Stephen Miller know the entire Congress, him included, and the Trump administration are giant criminals, and government in and of itself is an organized crime syndicate? Does he understand these things? I think he does, because now he's leading the organized crime syndicate, you see, or a head guy in it. The Trump administration has deported around 675,000 illegal aliens. Here's Trump. We will have no mass deportations. You understand? Another promise broken by Trump. Here's Trump today talking about it. And so we're not getting mass deportations. We are getting Americans shot by the feds, but we're not getting mass deportations. I can get this clip. Come on, sucker. Here we go.
Many countries opened up their prisons and dropped them into the United States. Those are the people we're getting out. And we have a lot of heart. They said, you got to lighten up on this. We have a lot of heart for people. They came in illegally, but they're good people, and they're working now on farms, and they're working in luncheonettes and hotels and all. And we're looking to get the criminals out right now, the criminals. And I think it's very important. I mean, every once in a while you see a story, we take somebody. He should be out because they came in illegally. So in theory, they should be. But we're focused on the murderers, the drug dealers, the mentally insane. We have a lot of mentally insane killers. I mean, you can't even talk to them. It'd be nice if you could have a little reason, but you can't even reason. These are seriously ill people. You have a couple of countries where they were loaded up, their mental institutions and insane asylums.
I believe that's actually an older clip, but he told us, hey, we're not getting mass deportations. You see? Because he's going to look the other way on agriculture and the hospitality industry. We're not getting mass deportations, but we are getting Americans shot in the street by feds. And this was a crazy one right here. Here's Kristi Noem shares a quote she attributes to George Orwell in a speech after being fired by Trump.
It reminded me of the quote that is often attributed to George Orwell that states, "People sleep peacefully in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalfs." Which means you step up in order to protect people, and you do it in a way that other people often are never going to be required to.
What a load of shit. Kristi Noem Ice Barbie has been reassigned, fired as head of the Department of Homeland Security, and her new role is Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere, i.e. North American Union, i.e. American Technate, i.e. our region of one world government. We're going to get to that. Here's Trump's statement on Ice Barbie being fired. I'm pleased to announce that the highly respected U.S. Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st, 2026. The current Secretary, Noem Dog Killer Lady Ice Barbie, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially the border, will be moving to be Special Envoy for the Shield of America, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. Wow. Okay, so we got to keep an eye on what all is going to come out on Saturday. They're announcing a whole lot here, actually. And who is this Mullen? Well, we highlighted him yesterday as being a war profiteer because he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, right? So he gets this inside information briefing, and he's profiteered off of buying, I think it was Raytheon stock that we highlighted yesterday. Something like a 15% profit between when he bought it back at the end of last year and now. And so you better believe that old Senator Mullen here is going to profiteer off of immigration enforcement in this country. And he'll continue to war profiteer as well because he's a criminal, like all of them. More about him. Here is Mark Wayne Mullen, Trump's new pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security. He praised the Capitol cop who shot and killed unarmed Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt on January 6th and portrayed him as the real victim. Here's that clip. And so here is the tyrant that is going to be, at the end of this month, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, a war profiteer and a complete tyrannical maniac. It's not looking good, folks.
I guarantee you, I don't know for a fact, but I guarantee you he's never had to pull his weapon in a manner like that before. He was the last person in the world that ever wanted to use force like that. And he wasn't wanting to do that. I know for a fact, because after it happened, he came over and he was physically and emotionally distraught. And I actually gave him a hug. And I said, "Sir, you did what you had to do." And I mean that. Unfortunately, the young lady, her family's life has changed, and it was an unfortunate situation that she lost her life and some people lost their loved ones. But the lieutenant's life has also changed too, because if it's the first time you've ever had to use lethal force, that doesn't ever leave you. And it wasn't his choice. He didn't show up to work that day to have to do that. He was doing his job, and he got put in a situation where he had to do his job because there was members still on the balcony.
There you go. This guy will sign off on the Fed shooting you and saying they're just doing their job, just following orders. Straight up Nazis. That's where we're at here. Sad to say, in America. Mac on the YouTube said, Azerbaijan just got bombed by Iran. Yeah, a whole lot. We got more of that reporting. Is Skynet live? I don't know. Ruckus said he doesn't think so yesterday. I think they have way more than they will ever show us. Anyhow, Pentagon has formally notified Anthropic that it's deemed the company as its products as a risk to U.S. supply chain. That's a report out of Bloomberg. We've been reporting on that as it's developed, but I guess today they've officially declared Anthropic a threat to the national security supply chain. OpenAI, Sam Altman takes jabs at Anthropic, says government should be more powerful than companies, according to a report out of CNBC. That was a very status of them, wasn't it? Okay, next up we have the Epstein section, the Congress are rapists section, the just depravity of it all. But before we get to that, let's take our live commercial break as we're almost at the hour. Everybody go to weaponizednews.com, get yourself a white background sticker, a holograph sticker, and we have the clear sticker. Weaponized News stickers at Weaponized News store. Put it on your laptop, your bumper, your guitar, your work locker, your hard hat. Help support independent reporting and analysis, brought to you here 5 days a week at Weaponized News, broadcasting live 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. In the description below this video, you'll find the link to the store, Weaponized News store /shop. We have Buy Me a Coffee, Cash App, Bitcoin wallet address, all below this video. The links are there in the description. Give us that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. That's all free to you. We take donations right on the front of weaponizednews.com. We have a secure PayPal link you can donate to if you don't want to patron the store. If you don't have any extra funds, as we just went through, the economy not looking so great. Now, is it in the golden age? Simply give us that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. Help get the message out here. Again, independent reporting and analysis, brought to you 5 days a week at Weaponized News. Let's get a message from our sponsor here, Abazaba Enterprises. Listen to this short message, and we'll be back with the second half of Weaponized News.
Running a small business feeling overwhelmed by numbers and paperwork? Abazaba Enterprises has your back. Our expert business solutions include accounting, QuickBooks support, payroll, taxes, and top-notch consulting. Let us handle the details so you can focus on growing your business. Business Solutions Accounting, QuickBooks, Consulting, Payroll, Taxes. Call 559-577-9250. Call Abazaba Enterprises today at 559-577-9250 for stress-free solutions.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this Thursday, March 5th, 2026 edition. Thank you for joining us. On to MK Ultra. I think it looks like old Britney Spears is a MK Ultra victim, going in and out of different personalities, having breakdowns. They put that girl through hell, I believe. Today, it's being reported, People magazine, Britney Spears arrested for DUI in California. Yeah, because she's not in her right mind. She's been put through MK Ultra. Again, with these claims from the Department of Homeland Security, and no one has gotten in trouble. So tell me more about law and order, you crooks. Department of Homeland Security says DHS has taken unprecedented steps to protect some of the most vulnerable victims of the Biden administration's border crisis, unaccompanied children. Under Joe Biden, more than 450,000 unaccompanied children were lost, and many were sex trafficked, abused, and exploited by violent cartels, gangs, and smugglers. Under President Trump and ICE Barbie, we have already located 145,000 of these children, and we will not stop until every last one is found. Again, you're making the claim that the Biden administration is responsible for almost 500,000 missing children that were trafficked, abused, and exploited, and no one in the government is held accountable. It's shocking. It's truly shocking. Bold claims. So, police boats were seen approaching Little St. James Island there, formerly known as Epstein Island. Here's a short clip from TMZ. So not much there, but showing activity, something may be going on there. They're still protecting it. Now from Massey, of course, Trump's foil in this whole Masonic stage play we call American politics. Thomas Massey said Congress has secretly paid out more than $17 million. Well, we'll play the clip. It's a short one. It's like a minute clip here. Let me get this thing working right. And we reported on this yesterday, but it's worth re-reporting or reporting again today on the Congressional Sex Abuse Slush Fund.
You know, Congress has paid over $17 million in hush money for sexual misconduct inside of the offices in these buildings. And what's more is that was taxpayer money, right? The allegation is that President Trump paid $130,000 of his own money. But here in Congress, there may be some on this dais. I mean, I'm for turning loose all of these records. Who in here has had the taxpayer pay for their sexual misconduct charges the hush money? I bet there's some over there. There may be some over here. I don't know, but I do know it's taxpayer money, and I do know not a single.
Can we take that as a deduction on our tax return? My part of paying for Congress to go ahead and rape their staff? It's where we're at. It's where we're at. Anna Paula Luna. Don't trust her as far as I could throw her. Anybody in the government. Don't trust any of them as they battle each other for power and control in the crime syndicate known as government. Anna Paulina Luna said yesterday 357 members of Congress voted to block the release of sexual misconduct reports and the taxpayer slush fund used to pay off victims. Indeed. Here's the names. Nancy Mace. What did she say? She says these are the members of Congress who voted to bury sexual harassment records of members of Congress and keep you and me, American taxpayers, in the dark. She published a list. Obviously, I'm not going to read all these names, but here they all are. So complicit at the very least in covering up congressional sex abuse. There they all are. There they are. And so You can go to Nancy Mace X, see all the names, see if your representative's on that list. I'll post the link on Weaponized News Substack. Go take a look. Is my congressional representative using my taxpayer money to help cover up his sex crimes, his or hers, or them, theys, whatever the hell they want to identify as? Doesn't even matter at this point. Not to me. They're covering up sex crimes in the Congress. Meme of the day, I guess we got to rely on Nancy Mace for a while as we're in a war and resources are limited in the other departments. Here's meme of the day from Nancy Mace. Taxpayers footing the bill to cover up sexual harassment in the slush fund. Nice sentiment there, but not going to happen. The loudest voices screaming, release the Epstein files, just voted to bury the sexual harassment files of members of Congress. And she actually reposted this, Nancy Mace, Congresswoman. Holy F. She didn't post this, but she shared this post. Holy F. It wasn't even close. I'm going to tell my kids this is Epstein Island. And of course, that's a Congress because it is Epstein Island. And so that's a pretty accurate depiction for the kids. Here's a video from Nancy Mace talking about it. She's still a little bit confused, but she's trying to make political capital out of this, obviously.
Party, Democrats and Republicans are, I think, whipping to refer it to committee, which means they're going to protect each other once again. It will fail, and we won't get accountability or transparency. The American people are held to one standard, and Congress is held wholly to another.
Law and order! No one's above the law! They just scream that in your face. Well, actually, they are above the law. So is the Department of Justice. So is the Department of Justice. How many times has Pam Bondi lied about the Epstein files? Nancy Mace says. And why is the Department of Justice attacking a survivor for standing up for other survivors? As Congress knows, the Department of Justice is not hiding anything. This is a DOJ rapid response account that Nancy Mace was replying to. We have released more than 3 million documents. At any time a redaction error is flagged, we review and republish that document. So they're trying to cover their butt. Nancy Mace said, our motion to subpoena AG Pam Bondi passed the Oversight Committee. We will not stop until victims get the justice and answers they deserve. Did you guys know? I didn't know this until who's Vision for the Blind posted this, and William Ramsey Investigate reposted this. I did not know this, but the signs were there. We were just blinded by what? The lights, I guess. Turns out the Hollywood film The Devil's Advocate, starring Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. If you remember that film, turns out it was filmed in Donald Trump's apartment in New York City. Take a look. The Devil's Advocate, because it's all gold, gaudy, and of course that's the devil's apartment in the movie, right? Is Donald Trump's apartment right there, you can see, with all his occult symbolism in there. So there you have it. Donald Trump's golden New York City apartment was used as the set for The Devil's Advocate. DOJ to release more than 47,000 additional Epstein files by the end of the week, according to a report out of the New York Post. So it's going to be like, well, it's going to be like we were talking about yesterday with Ruckus, this daytime television reality TV show is what they're going to make it into here now, apparently, with the drip, drip, drip of the Epstein files. So how sanitized are these 47,000 more files coming out by the end of the week? I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. But the Department of Justice is breaking the law right now as they scream law and order and no one's above the law in your face. Network of elite doctors treated Epstein's victims, according to a report out of the failing New York Times. Doctors from institutions including Mount Sinai, Columbia University treated both Epstein personally and young women that are part of his circle. Some allegedly bent professional ethical standards in exchange for gifts and donations from Epstein. I know, shocking, right? Doctors without ethics. But at least they're learning nutrition now, maybe, possibly. No? Yeah, I have my doubts. As well, Epstein endorsed disturbing medical procedure on a woman, had a bad accident on the island. Dr. Ting put 13 stitches on her head, laid out on the dining room table. And here's that email talking about it. So shocking. Corrupt doctors working with Epstein. I know. It's pretty shocking. There's that email. And that's all the Epstein news we have for today. We're going to definitely keep an eye out for these new over 47,000 files dropping and keep reporting as we go through this, as we're in the middle of a war as well. Okay, on to geopolitical news here now. Peter Thiel, who knew? Mr. Technocracy. He met up with the Japanese Prime Minister. Here they are. And so spreading the technocracy over there to the vassal state known as Japan. I'm sure they appreciate Epstein's good buddy, Peter Thiel, over there pushing technocracy on the Japanese. Trump tells Politico people are loving what's happening in Iran. And he says Cuba is next. Indeed, Cuba is next. America is taking it all over here now, aren't they? As the Constitution says, America should be the ruler of the world. We still got Russia, Ukraine shooting each other. Very bad. We're praying for peace. Trump today on Zelensky, he said now he's got even less cards, talking about Zelensky in an interview with Politico. Trump tells Politico, Zelensky not showing enough willingness to negotiate. Zelensky has to get on the ball. He has to get a deal done. We're still waiting there. It's been a lot longer than 24 hours since Trump took office. Russia-Ukraine war still going there, as we're now in a two-front proxy war with Russia. For the first time, the U.S. sided with Russia and China at the United Nations nuclear watchdog, opposing a resolution warning that attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure threaten nuclear safety. The measure, backed by European countries, Australia, Canada, Argentina, and Chile, passed 20-4 despite U.S. opposition. Niger was the only other country to vote against it. Washington said it shared concerns about risks to Ukraine's nuclear plants, but opposed what it called an unnecessary resolution that wouldn't help achieve peace between Russia and Ukraine. There's that out of the United Nations today. Trump demands Aardvarkland President Herzog grant Bibi Netanyahu, shadow president of America, pardon immediately. He says Herzog, he's a disgrace. He should grant a pardon today. I don't want anything to occupy Netanyahu's mind except for war. Still calling for a pardon for corruption, bribery. Bibi is even too corrupt for the Aardvarks in Aardvarkland, if you can imagine that. That's where we're at. And Trump's calling for a pardon for the internationally wanted war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu, shadow president of America. More about this America's Counter Cartel Conference. Here are these characters. Here are these characters from the Department of War. All war criminals right there. So Secretary of War Hegseth signed the America's Counter Cartel Conference Joint Security Declaration today. Here he is signing it. Moving on, CENTCOM did do a press conference earlier today. CENTCOM commander Brad Cooper said America destroyed over 30 Iranian Navy ships. Says we hit an Iranian drone carrier ship, and as we speak, it is on fire. Indeed, they're blowing stuff up right now as we speak. Here is some more propaganda from the Department of War. If we can get it to load here. All right. America's the greatest innovators in history. We are ushering in the golden age of American innovation. Propaganda from the Department of War today.
In 2.5 centuries, that's 250 years, the spirit of 1776 has carried our flag to places and heights that our founding fathers could never have.
You need to prevent war and, if required, to fight war and only do one thing. You know what that is? Win! Win!
It's not even good propaganda anymore. Undersecretary of War Michael, scaling and integration drones across the joint force gives us a decisive battlefield advantage. That's why we are unleashing drone dominance at the Department of War. Let's watch this clip. Drone dominance at the Department of War.
Today, I'm turning over my role as Acting Director of the Defense Innovation Unit to Owen West. Owen is a former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and a Marine, who will bring the drone dominance effort with him to DIU. Drone dominance is Secretary Hegseth's program to arm our operational units with one-way attack drones, and it uses the Secretary's acquisition reform strategy to get it done. I'm here today with Owen at Fort Benning to observe Gauntlet 1, the first in a series of competitions that will get us to scale and drive costs down. After each competition, price comes down, capabilities increase, and volume doubles. How is this possible? A steady demand signal to industry. Too often, the department has been inconsistent, especially with new entrants. On Gauntlet 1's 25 competitors, 20 are small businesses and 5 are new entrants. By putting out a steady call to industry with $1 billion, we attract businesses and the winners can build product roadmaps and decrease costs. It pays to be a winner in the competition. Hundreds of companies have applied, and soon DIU will announce the dozen winners of Gauntlet 1. But this is not a down select. In Gauntlet 2, companies that were not initially selected can reapply, although their products must be more capable and more American. As the process goes on, we will gradually increase the number of US-made parts. So, if you're not selected in this round, go back to the drawing board. If you were selected, congratulations, but don't let up. The competition gets harder. Gauntlet 2 will involve additional capabilities and other counter-drone measures. Each of you will need to bring your A game. Good luck.
Wowzers. Continuing here, here's meme of the day from the Department of War. They're finding time in this war to still put out memes. AI first war fighting, decision superiority, very dystopic. Analyzing environment, threat neutralized, target engaged, optimizing route. They're using AI in this war. They've said as much. U.S. Central Command is requesting that the Pentagon send more military intelligence officers to its headquarters in Tampa, Florida, to support Iran war operations for at least the next 100 days, but likely through September, according to a report out of Politico. It doesn't look like this thing is ending anytime soon, this war with Iran. Trump says he backs the Kurds launching an Iran offensive. I think it's wonderful that they wanted to do that. I'd be all for it, according to Reuters. And then we had the reply. It got lost in the shuffle here, but then we did have, let me find the reply to that from Iraq. If I can find it here. It got lost in the shuffle. We'll get back to it if I can't find it quickly. Where is it? We'll get back to it because I lost it in the shuffle. I wanted to give you their reply. They said, basically, if I can't find it, don't use us as cannon fodder. And they're not going to have a choice here now. It looks like the Kurds are up on the slaughtering block from all sides. And again, we're talking about the CIA is going to arm the Kurds, other militia groups in Iran around there, creating more terrorists. And so assuming they go fight Iran and they do that and they're still alive after all that, and the war's over, let's just say, whenever that happens, we're going to point the finger back at these groups and say they're a bunch of terrorists. Same routine, same old song, same old song. Well, how do you know that? Well, because we funded them, armed them, radicalized them to fight Iran. They're damn terrorists. Everybody knows that, right? Right? We got to go and get them. Yeah. You expect that in what, 4 or 5 years? Believe it. Believe it. The foreign minister of Iran, in an interview with NBC News, said that, well, play this short clip maybe. Here you go. About boots on the ground. I'm going to see U.S. boots on the ground there. There already are U.S. boots on the ground. But I'm talking about official, 50,000 Marines. I don't know. But here's a Iranian foreign minister interview with NBC.
boots on the ground in Iran. Are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this war even more than the previous war. So you can see, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even, a ground invasion. So our
Foreign Minister of Iran says they're prepared for a ground invasion. This ain't just one and done. And we're going to go kidnap or kill your leader and everything's going to be fine. The Iranian regime is well in place here now. And they have martyrs lined up around the block. You understand? To fill that role. And so now the foreign minister said in this interview with NBC, when asked who's in charge of Iran right now, he says the system is working very well. There is now council that takes charge of supreme leader's duties. Telling you they got martyrs lined up. Okay, UK, where are you at, UK? You're him hauling. How the hell is Keir Starmer even in there? Shouldn't he have resigned of the shame of Epstein? But he's still there lying to everybody like the good Fabian socialist that he is, right? Keir Starmer on Iran, this conflict could continue for some time. You don't say. Ted Cruz takes part in a massive humiliation ritual for AIPAC. That's what the poster said here. This is from Shadow of Ezra on the X. That's what told Ted Cruz sells how wonderful Aardvark land is.
Today, more than ever before, the U.S.-Israel alliance and friendship is under assault. It's under assault from forces in the United States that would try to break that friendship. I think that's profoundly dangerous. America is friends with Israel because it is unambiguously in America's national security interest to be friends with Israel. Israel is fighting the enemies of America. Every Hamas terrorist that Israel kills, every Hezbollah terrorist, every...
Is it in our national interest to have Iran declare fatwa, global jihad against us? That doesn't seem very, I'm not feeling so safe over here, Mr. Senator Cruz. Here's Shadow President of America, Bibi. It's in his language. I got something in my throat, but it does have English translation. Let's take a listen to what he says. Their attack on Iran is called Operation Roaring Lion, Operation Roaring Epstein, and ours is called Epic Epstein Fury.
ביום השישי של מבצע שאגת הארי, אני פה בבסיס חיל האוויר בדרום הארץ, עם הטייסים המופלאים שלנו ושל ארצות הברית וצוותי הקרקע המסורים. שיתוף הפעולה הוא היסטורי בין צבא ארצות הברית לצה"ל, בין חיל האוויר לחיל האוויר האמריקני. אנחנו ממשיכים להלום במטרות משטר הטרור באיראן וגם מול גורמי הטרור בלבנון, וההישגים הם גדולים, אבל המלאכה עוד מרובה. אני רוצה שוב להודות לידידי הנשיא טראמפ על שיתוף הפעולה בינינו, בין ישראל וארצות הברית. יחד נמשיך ויחד נשיג את המשימות שלנו בעזרת השם.
Again, I don't think we're talking about the same God. I'm not with that guy's God, I'll tell you that, whoever that may be. Tucker, CIA man, he says they've had a big falling out publicly, him and Trump now, apparently. Tucker says a false flag could occur in which a missile or drone from Iran might accidentally hit the Dome of the Rock, leading to Iran being blamed to blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? Part of their whole, as we covered the last few days, their whole end of times prophecy to bring back the Messiah. Blow it up themselves and say Iran did it, right? And we can have false flags in America organically or engineered by the government, or a combination of both. Let's hope and pray none of these things happen. All are possibilities. Okay, I'm sure you guys probably saw this. It went mega viral. The Marine that got his arm broken or his hand broken yesterday, protesting that he's not going to fight for aardvark land. This is Brian McGinnis, who had his hand or arm broken by AIPAC-funded Republican Senator Tim Sheehy. Here's what he said before, I believe, he went in there and did his protest. Brian McGinnis showed up in Washington, D.C. This is yesterday morning, for all Americans who felt betrayed by our government starting another war. Anybody who feels disillusioned and betrayed by our government, you're not alone. Here he is. Where's all the rest of the Marines at?
Hey guys, I'm here in DC trying to speak out against the Senate and ask them why they're going to send our men and women to harm's way when our elected officials said that there would be no world war. Anybody who feels disillusioned and betrayed by our government, you're not alone. Join us in demanding accountability for this betrayal. Free Palestine, free America.
Wow, he said free Palestine, damn terrorists, right? Here's the incident. Here's the incident where he goes and protests. Said nobody wants to die for aardvark land. Pete Hegseth does, or at least he acts like he does.
Israel is the reason for this war. America does not want to fight this war for Israel. Let's go. Come on, let's go. America does not want to send its sons and daughters to war for Israel. Your inability to name that shows your exemptness as leaders. This is wrong. And nobody wants to fight for Israel. Reminder to all our Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America. No one wants to fight for Israel.
Sir, thank you for your service.
The senator broke his hand. The senator broke his hand.
Well, there you go, damn Irishman Hamas right there, right? A little bit more on that. Republican Senator Tim Sheehy. Oh yeah, he's an AIPAC man. You see, 135,000 plus received from the Aardvark land lobby there. He helped break that Marine's hand in escorting him out there, doing his AIPAC duties. Very good of him. This crazy report out of Axios, they're spying, Aardvark land spying on Trump administration to make sure they weren't conducting real diplomacy talks without Aardvark land. So all that was a charade. Aardvark land intel obtained informed earlier this week that raised suspicious communication had taken place between Iran and the administration to discuss a ceasefire. Netanyahu called the White House officials on Monday and asked if talks or exchange of a message happened. Netanyahu requested clarification from the White House earlier this week after intelligence information indicated that elements in the Trump administration may be holding contacts with Iran. The White House clarified to Netanyahu that no such conversation took place. It's wild. CENTCOM's fact-checking live. They say rumors are circulating on social media of U.S. fighter jet crash over Basra. These are baseless and not true. Wild to have U.S. CENTCOM live fact-checking the war reporting. Pretty wild. Azerbaijan, I think Mac mentioned that, but has been attacked by Iran. Azerbaijan president has instructed the country's military to prepare retaliatory measures and place the armed forces on the highest level of readiness after a drone strike on the hit the Nakhachevan enclave, which he described as an act of terrorism against Azerbaijan. Iran has denied responsibility, suggesting the incident may have been a provocation aimed at drawing Azerbaijan into a wider conflict. And we're seeing that all over from all these Gulf, West Asia countries that don't want to get drawn into this conflict. And they're like, wait a minute. Was it really Iran that attacked us? Was it aardvarks? Was it America? Who was it? Like, what's going on here? So, part of the fog of war. Saudi journalists say not all attacks on Gulf coming from Iran, fears U.S. aardvark land dragging monarchies into war. Indeed. And they're talking about, well, you guys might drag us in this war with Iran. We're still going to be here. And you could say, well, we decided we accomplished our mission and we're going to go ahead and go home. And we're still, the Gulf states, in a war with Iran. You see? You see how this is playing out? Statement by Hamas. Today, they say the Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, condemns the ongoing criminal Zionist aggression against Lebanon and the Palestinian refugee camps, the latest of which was committed early this morning when an airstrike targeted a home in the refugee camp in Tripoli City, northeastern Lebanon, killing a Palestinian family and injuring others. These hideous crimes constitute a new Zionist aggression that have flagrantly violated all international laws and norms, a stark violation of Lebanon's sovereignty, and a direct targeting of our Palestinian people in refugee camps, reaffirming the criminal occupation's continued policy of pressuring our people inside and outside, of pursuing our people inside and outside of Palestine. We in the Hamas movement extend our deepest condolences to the bereaved families of the martyrs and to our people in the camps. reiterating that these crimes will not break the determination of our people, nor detour from continuing the struggle until realizing our aspirations for liberation, return, and independence. We hold the Zionist occupation government fully responsible for this crime and its repercussions, and call upon the United Nations and the international community to condemn this dangerous aggression. Hamas hasn't got the memo either. There is no international order anymore. All that's over. Appeals to the UN are a dead letter, son. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to tell you here. And again, this is not the sex offender map in Aardvark land, as is often confused. These are potential strikes. Aardvark land sirens sound across several areas amid sounds of explosions due to interception attempts following new launches. This is a warning of areas potentially being struck, not the sex offender list, even though they overlap pretty much there in Aardvark land. Continuing here, where we at? Still have a bit to get to. Let me blast through this. Aardvark land's online. We reported on this yesterday, but I found it so funny, I thought we would report on it again today. Aardvark land's online propaganda network unravels as influencers sue Tel Aviv over unpaid contracts. Remember all of that, indeed. So they're not paying. So you sold your soul for $7,000 to post pro-genocide posts on social medias, and now, lo and behold, the genociders, the war criminals, say we're not going to pay you. Shocking, I know. So you sold your soul for nothing. Good job, loser fluencers there. According to the Kremlin, Russia's position regarding Iran remains unchanged and well known to all. Moscow has not received any request from Tehran for assistance officially, right? That's their official statement. They're out of the Kremlin. Old China, we said they're denouncing all this. We read you the official statement yesterday. Nothing new really there today. Let's take a look now. Dissident Media posted this: Turning Point Study Bible versus the King James Bible. Seems like a pretty big difference in interpretation. Let's take a look. Of course, here is the King James Version, Jeremiah 31 through 36. Jeremiah 31:36. Only if these decrees vanish from my sight, declares the Lord, will Aardvark land ever cease being a nation before me. And then you look at the Turning Point Study Bible. And again, the top is the King James Version. This is the Aardvark version, the Zionist version out of Turning Point, USA. All of the earth and all the decrees that hold everything together would have to cease before God ceases to acknowledge Aardvark land as a nation. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. They're using Zionist propaganda to go ahead and brainwash the youth. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Aardvark land also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. There you go. Continuing here. Oh, here was, I wanted to follow up again on this, the massacre of the schoolgirls there. Here's a clip. Here's a clip from George Galloway's show where he's talking about it, and then I'll add some more context after we play this clip.
It is the biggest single American atrocity since the Vietnam War. The massacre of 167 girls aged between 7 and 12 in their classrooms in an elementary school close to the Straits of Hormuz in an obscure and far-off part of Iran, for no reason that anyone can possibly fathom. All these children.
So I'm going to give you a potential reason here now that is looking more and more like it's what's actually going on with that situation. This is Michael Hoffman. He says the strike on an Iranian school that killed at least 160 preteen students and teachers on the first day of the U.S. Aardvark land regime change operation resembles satanic rituals. Ali Reza Sinai, Iranian ambassador to Belarus, alleged today that U.S. Aardvark land forces targeted the Minab school in some ritual of child sacrifice meant to bring success to the U.S. Aardvark land military operation. Here's the report about the Kurds that I was looking for earlier. To follow up on that with the CIA and Trump giving them their blessing to go ahead and become cannon fodder over there. Iraq's First Lady, Shanaz Ibrahim Ahmed, said, "Leave the Kurds alone. We are not guns for hire." Here's that statement from her. Yeah, the Kurds are screwed, man. They're getting it from every which direction. And so I guess, I don't know, I guess Washington thinking is they have no choice, so send them into the meat grinder one way or another. Judge Napolitano, keeping it real. Keeping it real. He says, his post here on antiwar.com says Donald Trump's unjust and unconstitutional war. And he goes through laying out the constitutional case there from Judge Napolitano, keeping it real. Here's Secretary of War, and now flashback clip of Pete Hegseth. He went on tour of Aardvark land settlements. During a speech in Jerusalem, he said he was preparing his sons to fight for Aardvark land. Here you go. Like, seriously, dude?
When I came here, a lot of people asked me, a couple people this morning in a press conference, what can Israel learn from America? Was asked a couple of times. And each time I stopped and I said, you need to reverse that question. The question is, what can America learn from Israel? But predominantly in American culture today, American culture is largely asleep. Largely asleep to the realities of the world that we face. Largely asleep to the depth of the threats on the horizon. And the state of Israel, for reasons that you all understand far better than I, is not asleep. And is forced each and every day to wake up under the umbrella of existential threats. So when I speak in America, I always end by talking about a quote that is a sentiment that is oftentimes used in America, which is that veterans will be tempted to say, I fought I put on a uniform. I went to Iraq or Afghanistan or World War I or World War II or Korea or Vietnam so that my kids won't have to. I fought so that they can live in peace. And it is a tempting thought. In fact, in World War II, after American GIs deployed around the globe to defeat Nazis and the Imperial Japanese, liberate camps too late in many places, but be a part of that, that generation went back to America and said, we did fight the Nazis so the next generation can live more free. But I counsel nobody to say that anymore, and I never say it myself. I didn't fight so that my kids won't have to fight. I fought knowing that my kids will have to fight as well. And maybe that's by force of arms. Lord knows the policies our country has pursued in light of the threats that we face have brought terror to our shores as well. Maybe that will require a rifle. But if not, I hope my children, our 3 boys, Gunnar, Boone, and Rex, who are 6, 4, and 10 months old, will be raised to love the Lord their God, raised to love their country, raised to love their state and their community and their family, and to be willing to fight for them all. And stand by understand and know who their friends are in this world, and have the willingness and ability to stand by them in times easy and tough, in vows, in sickness, and in health. The relationship, richer or for poorer, the relationship between Israel and America, in my mind, is inextricable. It is one in which we stand side by side, prepared to stand with our friends in every way. And we have a leader right now who has not, and who has turned in the other direction. That is
That's our Department of War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, 2016. In the chat, Bart says that the F-35, Aardvark F-35 downed a 30-year-old Iranian trainer jet today. F-35's first combat kill. At least they're doing something with it. Apparently now there's been a public falling out between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. In an interview earlier today with NBC News, Trump said, Tucker has lost his way. I knew that a long time ago, and he's not MAGA. MAGA is saving our country. MAGA is making our country great again. MAGA is America first, and Tucker is none of those things. And Tucker is really not smart enough to understand that. Iranian lawmaker says forces authorized to shoot enemy collaborators. So there's ongoing, as we continue to report here, operations on the ground in Iran. And so you'll be shot there in Iran collaborating with the enemy. So that's what they're saying, as they have been doing. Right there. The Washington Post reports that the Iranian government remains fully in control of the country. They're bombing the hell out of southern Lebanon right now. Here's Smoke Trick. Is this English? Probably not. Of course not. And no translation. Anyhow, Aardvarkland Finance Minister Smoke Trick says that Beirut's Dahai district will soon look like Kianis. In other words, they're going to turn it into a crater. And that's the capital there in Lebanon, Beirut. Highly densely populated area. He's saying they're going to turn it into a crater. U.S. aardvark land war kills over 1,200 Iranians, destroys thousands of civilian buildings so far. The Lebanese Ministry of Health reports that since March 2nd, 123 have been killed and 683 injured in U.S.-backed aardvark land attacks on Lebanon. Iran, another 30 people killed there in Qizvin province in an airstrike targeting a hotel. Aardvark Land Army is suffering casualties as well. Injuries. Aardvark Land Army admits that an officer was severely injured and another soldier was moderately injured in battles with Lebanese resistance in southern Lebanon earlier today. Aardvark Land Channel 12 says that the north of the country is under a simultaneous rocket attack from Iran and Hezbollah. Indeed. Indeed. And then here is the conference. What the heck was the name of it again? I got it at the end here set up. Let's see. What was their title of it again? I had too much open. Anyhow, enjoy. This is crazy. Per Simon, he said, take a look at this, play it. It's worth it. Listen to what they're talking about. The essentially North American Union, the American Technate, and updated version of all those is where we're at here. What the heck is it called? They didn't even put it in the title. They just say Pete Hegseth speaking during a conference at Southcom in Florida, and they don't even put the title in there from the Department of War on this video. It's the, let me go back and find it, or it's going to bug me so I get the name right here. So we go back through this. Where is it? We did cover quite a bit today. Thank you, everybody, for hanging with us as we're on day 6 of Iran war. Okay, it is called, that's what this video, about 30 minutes worth of Stephen Miller and Hegseth, America's Counter Cartel Conference at U.S. Southern Command. And take a listen here. Again, via Simon, he gave me the time points, said listen up because this is some important stuff, and that's how we'll play out today's show. Not my president, Sam, not my president. He's your president, Bob. You voted for him, not me. No, seriously, I hear you. Impeach him now. Impeach Trump now. But that, sadly, that's not going to happen. It's looking like they're going to declare an emergency over this war, and that's probably all part of the plan. And we probably won't even have elections this November. The way it's going, and listen to how these maniacs talk, is the way it's looking, honestly, at this point. I wish I could give you some better analysis than that at this point, but that's the way it's looking. That's the way it's looking. Okay, thank you to everybody for tuning in on all of the channels. I'm not going to get to the comments today because, again, this is a half hour and we'll just close out the show with that. Thank you for keeping the comments going, everybody on the Odysee, on the X, on all of the platforms, Twitch, Kick, Bitchute, and, of course, Rumble and YouTube. Thank you for tuning in on all of the Weaponized News channels. It's appreciated. And we're going to play out with this. Thank you, everybody, in those comments. I can see on the Rumble and the YouTube. It is much appreciated. And as always, everybody do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening. Let's pray for peace. Let's pray for peace. And we'll see you back here tomorrow on Friday for more Weaponized News. Again, playing us out about 30 minutes of some crazy, crazy stuff these guys are saying. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in tonight.
General Nordhaus. And thank you to my good friend, Secretary Hegseth, who I've long admired, but I've gotten to know personally in the last number of months. And he is as fine a gentleman and as fierce a warrior as you will ever meet. And we've all learned to put our faith and confidence in his leadership of the War Department. So thank you, Pete. There's been a paradigm shift under President Trump in the Western Hemisphere in the last 14 months. Some of that was touched on by the earlier speakers, but just to restate it, we are not going to cede an inch of territory in this hemisphere to our enemies or our adversaries. Our national security, our homeland security, the safety and well-being of our people begins at home, begins in our neighborhood, begins in our home region. And for too long, we have allowed foreign enemies, foreign adversaries, and enemy terrorist organizations to control territory and spaces in this hemisphere where they can project power, project threats, and directly threaten the lives of your citizens and our citizens. And so under the leadership of President Trump, we are using hard power, military power, lethal force to protect and defend the American homeland. Not a single one of your nations should tolerate the existence of a single square mile of territory that is under the control of any entity other than the sovereign governments of your country. The idea that we would have in this hemisphere area that are under the physical control of foreign terrorist organizations, paramilitary organizations, is completely unacceptable. The cartels that operate in this hemisphere are the ISIS and the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere, and should be treated just as brutally and just as ruthlessly as we treat those organizations. What we have learned after decades of effort is that there's not a criminal justice solution to the cartel problem. There are elements of the problem that require a criminal justice solution, to be sure, but just as we fought Al-Qaeda and fought ISIS with the tip of a very lethal spear, the reason why this is a conference with military leadership and not a conference of lawyers is because these organizations can only be defeated with military power. And I see some heads nodding up front because they understand. You're dealing with a lot of lawyers in your own country, I'm sure. You have my permission not to listen to them. The key condition of human flourishing, of prosperity, is order and security. A country cannot pursue economic growth, cultural enrichment, art, architecture, education, science, if it doesn't have fundamental security first. And for too long, we've been caught in the vicious cycle in this hemisphere where countries from Mexico down to the tip of South America do not provide their citizens with basic physical security. So those citizens, in search of economic opportunity, illegally immigrate to the United States. They pay the smugglers, they pay the cartels, who then grow richer, who then go more powerful. And then your countries, in turn, become poor because you've lost your citizens, you've lost your human capital, you've lost your opportunities to develop and to grow. So you get poor, the cartels get more powerful, nothing changes, nothing improves. You have to break that cycle. You have to completely sever it. And that begins by dismantling these organizations that deal drugs, deal violence, assassinate, extort, blackmail, and also traffic illegally in human beings. That is a form of terrorism too. Illegal immigration facilitated by criminal networks is a form of terrorism. And those who are stealing your children and stealing your families and stealing your human capital are part of that terrorist continuum and should be thought of as such. It is not a victimless crime when people are paying human smuggling organizations, because that money then fuels assassinations, it fuels violence, it fuels instability, and it continues this cycle. For decades, a lot of organizations were sent to your countries. These are known as NGOs. I think you know the term, non-governmental organizations. And they gave you very, very bad advice for a very, very long time. And basically they told you, in short, that you needed to be softer and gentler and nicer to the criminals, and that you had to demilitarize your approach and extend more rights and more opportunities to the people who are sabotaging and destroying your society. I would make the point to you, as others have pointed out before, including the president of El Salvador, that the West only achieved the place that it did in human history because it spent previous centuries eradicating the criminal elements within its territories. So the West that we came to know, that had the great music and architecture and science and the most powerful economy, it had spent centuries previous to that establishing order first. So that by the time you get, to say 18th century England, 19th century England, there have been centuries of previous history in which ruthless means were used to get rid of the people who were raping and murdering and defying established systems of order and justice. And then when people could live freely and peaceably, and children and families and women could be safe, then it became possible to pursue all of these higher elements of life. So when people who are coming to countries like yours that have had struggles and difficulties and pains and challenges, and they're telling you anything other than first and foremost, secure your countries and your territory, they're giving you not only terrible advice, but advice if someone had come to Europe centuries ago and they had followed that advice, Europe would have never become the Europe that it eventually became. And the reason why many Western countries are struggling today is they've forgotten the eternal truth and wisdoms they once followed. And that's why here under President Trump in America, we are returning to those fundamental truths. We're returning to those fundamental principles. So I'll just close by saying that you will have in President Trump, in the White House, in the Department of War, the Department of State, and the whole of our government, unwavering support, unwavering commitment, and fidelity in achieving this mission, which is very simply to eradicate the criminal cartels and terrorist organizations, to deprive them of control of weapons, spaces, institutions, and territory. And the human rights that we are going to protect are not of the savages that torture and rape and murder. The human rights that we are going to protect are of the peaceable citizens who have an absolute human right to live in physical safety and security every day of their lives. And in that mission, I promise you, we will be your closest partner. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our Secretary of War, the Honorable Pete Hegseth.
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, General Donovan and I are pleased to welcome all of you to Southern Command this morning. I'm honored to be the first Secretary of War to lead a hemispheric defense conference like this in more than 30 years. This conference is about you. This conference is about us. This conference is not called the America '*S, America's Counter-Cartel Conference. It's the America's Counter-Cartel Conference. This is about what we together can do. You know, it's been more than 200 years since our nation struggled for independence from foreign rule. The War of 1812 was about the United States defending its independence and protecting its territory. a 47-year-old Carolinian who was a major general in the Army, as was mentioned, Andrew Jackson, defeated a British army almost double the size. Addressing his troops after victory at the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson declared, "Natives of different states acting together for the first time have reaped the fruits of an honorable union." His success galvanized a young country. In 1816, our country elected a Revolutionary War hero as president. James Monroe fought in the Continental Army, leading a charge against German mercenaries fighting for the British. The enemy fired a musket ball at him. It severed his artery and he almost died. But the young captain rallied and grew to be governor of Virginia, Secretary of War, and one of our greatest presidents. In 1823, President Monroe said that the United States owed the success of that young country to the candor and amicable relations with other powers to affirm our national policy. President Monroe declared, "We should consider any attempt on malign countries to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety." It was the Monroe Doctrine of 1823. And today, some 200 years later, we still marvel at the wisdom of President Monroe's declaration. We, like you, want borders and sovereign territories that are secure. We want unfettered access to key terrain and trade so that our nations can industrialize. And we want to prevent external powers from threatening our peace and independence in our shared neighborhood. This is the essence of the Monroe Doctrine. No external power will interfere in this hemisphere. Ours should be a region of strong, sovereign nations. It's the same principle that animates President Trump's defense approach today. President Trump and his Department of War are ushering in a new era of homeland and hemispheric defense, rooted in the unique heritage of our nation and your nations. Under President Trump, we restored the Department of War. You see, the Department of War was established by General George Washington and served our nation from its founding through our hard-fought victory in World War II. Many of your countries also once had ministries of war. Under President Trump, our nation has a newfound resolve that our founders would recognize, as Stephen alluded to and spoke to. They would recognize it, and they would appreciate it. We are at long last putting America, Americans, and the Americas first, ensuring peace through strength and restoring common sense. At our department, we're doing it by restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military to historic levels, and reestablishing deterrence in this hemisphere and around the world. For too long, leaders in Washington and their foreign policy functionaries abandoned the simple wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine. They were consumed with the United States only going abroad. They ignored the warnings of President John Quincy Adams, who said that if our nation went overseas only in search of monsters to destroy, that we would cease to be the ruler of our own spirit and our own backyard. Under previous leaders, we grew obsessed with every other theater and every other border in the world except our own. These elites reduced our power and presence in this hemisphere, opting for a benign neglect that was anything but benign. In your countries, many leaders accepted the status quo to coexist with narco-terrorism, or for a law enforcement alone approach that failed to deter and dismantle threats. Same happened in our country under the previous administration. And the result of this collective neglect was fatal. More than 1 million Americans were killed by fentanyl, cocaine, and other drugs. Numbers greater than any casualties we've sustained in war. Millions of illegal aliens invaded our borders and destabilized nations across the hemisphere. Under Joe Biden's administration, the human smuggling industry exploded by more than 2,000%, from a $500 million so-called industry in 2018 to $13 billion by 2022. Cartels of terrorists across our hemisphere, enabled by adversaries, created and profited from chaos. What creates chaos? No leadership creates chaos. In our nation, narco-terrorist groups like Tren de Aragua prospered. They raped, they poisoned, they murdered innocent Americans. They terrorized our cities, our towns, and our neighborhoods like they do yours. Across this region, these gangsters control and terrorize large swaths of your territories, kill thousands of your people, and promote chaos that makes normal life sometimes almost impossible. Crime has spiked massively. Our hemisphere has 1/8 of the population, yet 1/3 of the violent crime. There's a reason for that. America's retreat from protecting its citizens and the complacency of many neighbors in this hemisphere was a great betrayal. That's what it was. A great betrayal against our people and our nations. Well, President Trump recognizes the wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine, and the days of us betraying and endangering our own citizens are finished. President Trump has reestablished the Monroe Doctrine, the Trump corollary of the Monroe Doctrine, or if you'd like, for short, you can just call it the Donroe Doctrine. Under President Trump, securing America's interest in the Western Hemisphere and keeping our homeland safe are our top national security priorities. The President's historic national defense strategy ensures that the Department of War will prioritize resources around the threats and objectives that are core to homeland defense and the people and prosperity of the American people. And to start, the Department of War is once again defending our borders as a priority of our national defense. With our law enforcement partners, we are defending our borders and making our streets safe again. Crossings at our southern border, at the U.S.-Mexico border, have dropped to the lowest number in history. Murders nationwide have plummeted by more than 20%. We now have operational control of our southern border. 0 people are crossing our southern border. We will not rest until we have complete operational control of every inch of all of our borders. So it starts with us. We're addressing it, but we're not stopping there. Under President Trump, for the first time in history, the Department of War is on the offense against narco-terrorists as well. I should back up a step, though. In order to get 100% operational control of our border, we didn't just look at Border Patrol and say, that's your job. It's a law enforcement function. We deployed the United States military. Right now, the Division Command of the 101st Airborne is in operational control of the southern border. We ensured that the most capable assets we had in our country were deployed to our own border to defend that border against the narco-terrorists and drug dealers seeking to enter our country, not treating it simply as a law enforcement function. Working with our partners, but recognizing it's a core military function. But going on offense with Operation Southern Spear has restored deterrence against the narco-terrorist cartels that profited from poisoning Americans. Last month, we went a few weeks without targeting a single boat. Why? Well, because we couldn't find a whole lot of boats to sink. And that's the whole point, is to establish deterrence from narco-terrorists who have been able to traffic almost unfettered. And if the consequence was simply to be arrested and then released, well, that's a consequence they'd already priced in a long time ago. A new dynamic had to be put in motion in order for their decision cycle to change. And when adversaries are forced to move out of comfortable positions, as you know, as military men and women, they're more vulnerable when they're moving in a different direction, which is also the point. Drug overdoses that kill our citizens have dropped. Flows of fentanyl, a weapon of mass destruction, are down 56%. We will continue to destroy these threats. In January, U.S. forces raided and arrested the most dangerous house and the most dangerous compound inside the most fortified fort in the capital city of Caracas, of 2 indicted individuals, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, fugitives of the U.S. law. Operation Absolute Resolve showed the bravery of America's best, our warfighters. Nobody can do what the United States of America can do. It's not even close. President Trump has shown what is possible when you reject the status quo delusion that threats to our homeland and our hemisphere are somehow secondary. America is prepared to take on these threats and go on the offense alone if necessary. However, it is our preference, and it is the goal of this conference, that in the interest of this neighborhood, we all do it together with you, with our neighbors and with our allies who are eager and willing and capable. To do this, to work together, we must first acknowledge what was lost and then understand what needs to be restored. All the nations represented in this room are offsprings of Western civilization. Our nations are and always will be united by our heritage, our history, and geography in this new world. We share the same interests. And because of this, we face an essential test. Whether our nations will be and remain Western nations with distinct characteristics, Christian nations under God. Proud of our shared heritage with strong borders and prosperous people ruled not by violence and chaos, but by law, order, and common sense. Or whether we are permanently torn apart by something else, led astray by competing forces, radical narco-communism and anarcho-tyranny, which threaten our people, borders, and sovereign lands in the name of a false sovereignty or a false peace. Uncontrolled mass migration, which overwhelms domestic resources intended for deserving citizens and drives unchecked crime and unchecked violence. Or the belief in so-called globalism that seeks to erase our distinct national identities in the name of tolerance, erase our borders in the name of compassion, and erase our warrior ethos and that which makes us strong in the name of so-called diversity and political correctness. One of the dumbest phrases in military history, which used to be echoed from the former Defense Department in the previous administration, they would say it over and over and over again, was our diversity is our strength. It's the single dumbest phrase in military history. Because what is our strength is our unity. Our strength is in our shared purpose, in the training we do together, the capabilities we have to do, we can do together. In our context, the Constitution we swear an oath to defend together, the uniform we wear together. That is our strength. We reject other notions and offer a new choice. We must defend our national interest and restore our national identities. Otherwise, the outcome is the same. Our hemisphere will be poorer, more dangerous, and weaker. This matters not because we seek to preach to you about culture wars or ideologies, or to tell you how to run your countries. We're not here to tell you how to run your countries. Instead, it matters how we assess the threats facing us and the choices that we make on how to overcome them. That is what will define our destiny. President Trump understands that today's threats to border security and key terrain in our hemisphere are existential questions for our nation and for all of yours. When adversaries conduct incursions in this hemisphere, off the coast of a U.S. state, Alaska, or off the coast of Greenland, or in the Gulf of America, or the Caribbean, that is a direct threat to the United States homeland and to peace in this hemisphere. When adversaries control ports or infrastructure along strategic choke points for U.S. and hemispheric trade, such as the Panama Canal, or install military facilities just miles off our shore, that is a threat to the United States homeland and peace to this hemisphere. When terrorist killers and cartels capture strategic infrastructure, resources, and entire towns or cities close to U.S. borders and U.S. shores, or profit from mass illegal migration, that is a threat to the United States homeland and a threat to all of you as well, to the Americas. The same adversaries that threaten our shared heritage threaten our shared geography as well. They seek to displace the historic North-South relationship that we've always shared with some sort of a new global South that excludes the United States and other Western nations, but includes non-Western powers and other adversaries. The answer to our challenge is not to ignore our geography in the name of global interests, but to embrace our shared geography in the name of national interests. That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America. Why? Because every sovereign nation and territory north of the equator, from Greenland to Ecuador and from Alaska to Guyana, is not part of the global south. It is our immediate security perimeter in this great neighborhood that we all live in. Each one of these countries border either the North Atlantic or the North Pacific. Each one of these countries sits north of the two basic geographic barriers that exist in this region, the Amazon and the Andes Mountains. This is basic geography that we don't teach in schools as much as we should. And it restores our north-south relations, and we must get it right. In the north, the United States must enhance posture and presence in cooperation with you and our sovereign partners to defend our shared immediate security perimeter. In the south, meaning south of the equator, the other side of this great neighborhood, we will strengthen partnerships through increased burden sharing. This will enable you to take a greater role to defend the South Atlantic and the South Pacific, and to secure critical infrastructure and resources in partnership with us and other Western nations. This is what we did in World War II, just like we sunk ships with torpedoes in World War II. At the Department of War, we called it the quarter sphere defense. And we will do this again. If we're serious about our national security, and if we prioritize geography, business as usual will not stand. This means that for every country in this hemisphere, border security must be your top priority. Border security is national security. President Trump said it when he first started to run. You're not a country if you don't have borders, and he's right. President Trump sealed our border by directing the military to mobilize resources and personnel to stop invasion by cartels and other criminal actors. You can do this as well, and many of you have. This also means that you too can and must go on the offense against narco-terrorists. We've had great collaboration with many countries in recent months, and I want to thank every country in this room that has supported our access to find, fix, and finish cartel targets. We have only just begun to work with you. More must be done by you and by us to target narco-terrorist groups across all domains. We will dismantle narco-terrorist networks in this hemisphere, and we will deny access to the state adversaries who support them. We will correct the mistakes of the past, the mistakes of the so-called global South. I want to thank General Donovan, who has been an excellent partner and a great new leader here at Southern Command. One of the great mistakes of the past was that our leaders didn't provide the U.S. Southern Command with the support that it needed. It was a command chock full of lawyers and social workers and NGOs, law enforcement. That's changing. General, I'm directing my team to correct these historic failures, to ensure that your command has the resources and staff that you need for this robust mission ahead. It's the least we can do. I want to, absolutely, thank you. It's about time. But it's not just us at the Department of War, and it's not just Southern Command. This is across the Trump administration. This is across the Department of War as well. Stephen Miller, thank you for your support and your leadership, for your clarity, understanding why this matters to each American citizen, and why the War Department is central to ensuring that it happens. It doesn't happen without President Trump, and it doesn't happen without your clarity and your leadership. I want to thank General Nordhaus as well for your support at every level. There's so many to thank. I see Corey Lewandowski here from the Department of Homeland Security. It doesn't happen without the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, Joseph Humeyer, the other part of the new bromance between him and General Donovan. Eric Garrissey, who from day one in my office, he was my first sergeant in Iraq, he's one of my senior advisors. Day one, he worked at Southcom for a long time, said, we need to be focused on the cartel threat. And he built a team to help put us in that direction, a lot of which manifests to this day. Patrick Weaver, Phil Hegseth, who I happen to know, and Ricky Berea, my chief, for doing a great job putting this together. Tony Salisbury, thank you. So many folks that every single day in Washington, I hope you know, are working hard to run as fast as you are, to stand alongside you in this mission. This is not a conference with flags so we can pat ourselves on the back. I can tell you that if I sold that to President Trump as the objective, he'd kick me out of his office. This is an operational conference to bring our countries more closely together to achieve a shared objective and do so aggressively. This is not a one-way street. Every partner in this region has to do more and invest more in your security as well. We, like you, want a hemisphere of sovereign, secure, and prosperous nations. We, like you, want what another great American president, Teddy Roosevelt, called the permanent peace on this hemisphere, and it will require action from all of us. You know, our schools used to teach American school children about our blessed history. Every child in grade school grew up knowing the remarkable story of this country. They knew that President James Monroe was once an orphan, that at a mere 16 years old, he had to look after his siblings. I've got an almost 16-year-old. He couldn't look after anything. It's remarkable. Well, that orphan grew to be not just one of the greatest presidents, but one of our greatest Americans. After his presidency, when his wife died and he became frail and ill with heart failure, but he still spoke about what he called our shared cause of liberty. Still talked about the toils and the perils of our war for independence. James Monroe, our 7th president, died on July 4th, the 4th of July, Independence Day, 1831, 50 years after 1776. What I like to say is, here at the Department of War, we're in the 1775 business, which is when Americans took up arms before they even declared independence. All of you are also in the 1775 business. Without the force of arms, without our militaries, we cannot keep our country safe. That's my responsibility, and it is yours. With Donald Trump in the Oval Office and with all of you here, we can still realize that long ago dream of James Monroe in our time. We will make the Americas great again. Thank you, and God bless you.